Those who would say, oh, I'm devoutly intellectual and I need data and I need scientific proof, they're utilizing that gut instinct, which is their intuition. So in many cases, people are already utilizing their intuitive gifts, despite how chaotic it may seem and all of the challenges that are presenting themselves at this time. This period of destabilization, this is what is required in order to be able to shake the trees, in order to be able to restabilize or recalibrate in a way in which there is balance, in a way in which we have stronger foundations. We can get to that place of fatigue and exhaustion, and it's actually a blessing. What we do is we finally take a step back and say, what do I need to let go of? What can I surrender? What can I release? What can I unburden myself with?
Welcome back to another great episode of Rush here with Kate Eckman. I have a very special guest today. It's someone that I work with to help me get intuitive guidance and support and coaching, and someone who has such an extraordinary gift that it's hard to really put it into words and articulate what exactly she does deeper than she really just helps me work my out. And I'm very grateful for her. I discovered her online, and she really is a part of my team that has helped me change and transform my life for the best. So I'd like to introduce you now to Mercy. She's a psychic medium. She's an intuitive coach, and she's really going to offer all of us some guidance here today on how we can overcome, oh my gosh, just the complete chaos and uncertainty in the world, a very challenging time, a lot of people at odds, a lot of people in fear. And she's going to help us with some messages from spirits and to really help guide you. And then I highly recommend booking some one-on-one time with her too. So Mercy, thank you for being here. Welcome to Rush.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah. And I wanted to have you on because you've been such a guide for me in managing some really challenging times and working through some trauma and wanting to still perform at a high level and wanting still to really grow. And I know that you really specialize in personal transformation because you have this gift that I understand. And a lot of people watching, I feel like the people that we will attract to this episode will understand. But when did you know that you had this gift to really connect with a higher power, to connect with loved ones on the other side, to get this insight and guidance that is so remarkable? Because the first time we met, you didn't know me or anything about me, and you were able to give guidance and advice by connecting to a higher consciousness, to my consciousness, to others' consciousness, to really get an inside view of what's going on behind the scenes. You know, behind the scenes videos are so popular, but this is behind the scenes, I feel like, in terms of diving into our conscious or subconscious. I hope I'm doing it justice explaining it, but can you explain a little bit about this gift, where it came from, and what exactly you're doing to make you such an extraordinary intuitive guide?
Yeah, so I would say we'll start with the origin story. So it started many years ago when I was a child. Often when faced with difficult circumstances or when faced with tough questions or even trying to understand interpersonal relationships, I remember as early as like 4 or 5 years old, feeling a sense of knowing that these particular energies were going through some type of conflict that represented a lesson in their life. And it was never challenging for me to find that context or for me to understand these energies at a deeper level. It's as if I could connect with their energy, understand the background, be able to have empathy and really intuitively even guide them as a child, again, as young as 4 or 5, through circumstances like, let's say, conflict within family or within romantic relationships. And I remember even having a lot of empathy and understanding to the plight of my own parents, for instance, and knowing that even when they were being their flawed selves, as we all are, that there was a reasoning behind it. And it was really difficult for me to personalize that because I could always really connect deeply to the plight of who they were at a soul level. And there was this recognition of like this humanistic version of self and this, sort of spiritual sense of self. And being able to almost observe both of those selves at a very young age gave me both this context as well as provided this deep sense of empathy and a desire to be able to connect and not make any assumptions about the choices that they were making. And I feel that this was something where I was coaching and providing advice at a very young age. Even if you look at my old yearbooks in like grade school and high school, I was always writing something and channeling something, or I was always sharing directly with someone how to improve their circumstances or how to mend fences within their relationships or, maybe challenges they were having within, their own personal blockages with confidence, etc. So it's interesting that we often are who we are at that age. We just evolve and we do iterate and grow. But that is how I first discovered my connection to these higher energies, because I always felt like I had these voices speaking to me. I had this clairaudient gift, which I didn't truly understand until much later in my life. And I did see these visions, which was the clairvoyance coming through. But my strongest proficiency was clairsentience. I could feel anyone's energy into a room. They walk into a room, I could feel exactly what they're going through. I could feel they just went through a divorce. I could feel that they had just lost a pet. I could feel like what they had gone through in their life was so challenging, and this is why, and this is what it was bringing up for them. And I could be along that journey with them. And this was, again, like grade school.
Wow.
Things that I could never intellectually understand, but I could intuitively feel. And that's how I knew. That's where I had the distinction, because I wouldn't have even been exposed to subject matter that I was able to connect to emotionally or intuitively because of the intellectual lack of comprehension. It wasn't coming from a mind-based place. It was coming from an emotional place or a heart-based place. So that's the origin story in the background, but it evolves and iterates. I would say in terms of the gifts now that I'm so thankful and grateful for, it's always evolving. It's always growing. I'm always seeking to expand upon, the services I offer to my clients, and even, the services that I offer to them and that helps the collective as a whole. And I'm always trying to expand upon my own personal practice. So I don't feel like we ever stop growing or stop expanding. And I'm reticent to define like a fixed gift or say like, here's what I do and here's what I offer, because I feel like we're always constantly evolving and growing. And I also feel like most people are either very intuitive and they're not aware of it, or they have some type of psychic ability if they're able to really ground themselves and free themselves maybe of some of that distortion, right? Some of that clutter that comes up because of everything that we're dealing with on a daily basis and all that we've experienced in that nurture aspect of our journey and path thus far. So being able to just really ground and to be in this space of who we truly are, we can often connect to many gifts that we could utilize and express.
Can you explain to me what's happening when I ask you about an ex-boyfriend, for instance, and you don't know him, you don't even know his name if I don't offer it, you've never thought about him or his energy ever. And I can ask you about him, and even you'll sometimes close your eyes and just tune in for a few seconds and you'll say, okay, and you'll be able to tune into his energy and tell me, like, it's like, it seems magical, and it's just so out of this world, literally, because you're telling, it's like you then suddenly know his energy better than I even do, who's known him for a long time intimately, or then he probably even knows himself. And you share things that are so right on point that it just seems unbelievable. And then with that, not just tuning in, but then offering me the most eloquent advice that no one would ever be able to offer me, not in traditional therapy or even traditional coaching. It is using our intuition, which is a superpower, and connecting to a higher consciousness. How are you even able to do this? And what is happening in this process?
She wants to understand the nuts and bolts. So truthfully, in that process, again, there is an aspect of it that is mystifying to most, right? Because most can't comprehend the process of being able to connect to a higher energy. But in many cultures for years, historically, this is something that has been done in practice and ritualistically through shamanic rituals, etc. But for my specific process, what I'm doing is I'm actually connecting with their energy one-to-one. So I'm connecting with their guides and then connecting through them. Their guides, their larger spirit team is the conduit. And when I connect to their energy, I'm receiving messages through visualization. So that's the clairvoyance coming through. Sometimes I'll hear messages. I'll hear them actually speaking to me. And in many cases, I'm feeling their energy. So the aspect of being able to connect to them emotionally and their emotional connection to you specifically. And then what I feel immediately after that is your emotional connection and response. So understanding the symbiotic relationship that existed between the two of you, and then being able to understand sort of some of those core karmic wounds that could have been challenging for the relationship or could have created some type of obstacle. And then being able to connect back to your guides to be able to ask, on behalf of Kate's highest good, how can we better understand this relationship from her perspective as well, keeping in mind that both perspectives exist bilaterally, and being able to provide you the advice that's most supportive to you based on an understanding of both of those insights. But ultimately, what insight is going to be supportive to you moving forward, whether that is understanding or having closure or context, or just being able to truly understand and empathize what the benefit was to you or what the lesson was to you in connecting to that energy initially. So the process starts by connecting to their energy through their guides, but it completes through connecting to your guides and connecting to you directly as well, to be able to understand the relationship within the symbiotic or synergistic nature of the relationship.
It's so extraordinary, the work that you're doing and helping all of us who work with you to really heal and to grow. And there's so much growth through understanding, and understanding at a much deeper level than just the intellect, and understanding in our bones and our body and our consciousness and subconsciousness. And it's just been so remarkable to experience the process working with you, and just being able to connect on that deeper level. And, I hesitate to even ask, but, there's always people who, and a lot of things, there's people who don't believe in, Santa Claus, people who don't believe in God, people who don't believe in, I had a colleague who doesn't believe in any of that, but he says, I believe in nature. And I said, okay, so nature, a higher consciousness, but so for people who maybe even want to believe, but just are having a hard time wrapping their mind around, your gifts, the work that you do, how it's helping so many people. How do you explain it? Or do you just not even bother trying to explain it?
I think it depends on how the question is posed. So for those that are asking in order to prove a confirmation bias, my first instinct is that they're maybe not ready to receive that information. And that's not from a disparaging place. And it's interesting. I would say if there's a spectrum, I do have a pragmatism that's sort of baked into the spiritual practice that I manage, because I think it's important to have discernment. I think it's important to have that healthy skepticism, but I also feel like leading with that skepticism can lead us down a road or a journey or path in which we're just confirming something that we already know to be true. And when we think about the vast consciousness that exists outside of what is empirically proven, there's so much more to be gained by being able to delve into that consciousness versus focusing on sort of the empirical truth. And I would also say for those who are asking or wanting to know more, the best is to start by connecting to your own inner guidance and inner wisdom, and determine times in your life in which you maybe knew something to be true from that gut instinct. Often when people refer to that gut instinct, what that is this intuitive knowing. The gut instinct is essentially the societally acceptable way to speak to your intuition or speak to your inner knowing. And many don't even recognize that they're using their intuitive gifts on an ongoing basis. Those who would say, oh, I'm devoutly intellectual and I need data and I need scientific proof, they're utilizing that gut instinct, and that inner knowing or the gut is speaking directly to their brain. So often if they think it's coming from their brain, it's actually coming from their gut, which is their intuition. So in many cases, people are already utilizing their intuitive gifts. That's the first part that I would specify. Secondly, I would encourage those who are skeptical to just better understand through maybe the use of a spiritual practice that maybe is provided at a lower cost or for free, just to be able to tap their toe into the water. Because I feel in both cases, intellectually and intuitively, we should always be curious. Curiosity allows us to be open. For me, it's also not about proving someone right, because I have no desire to force anyone into a state of assurance or certainty. But what I do desire and hope for is to guide them to a place in which they're open to discovering themselves. So to those who are very constrictive, restrictive in the way that they approach any area of their life, my advice to them would be, do you feel like you're making the most of your journey? And are you having the fullest and most robust experience? Or are you actually restricting yourself because you are having this like healthy skepticism before you even explore or begin? Now, when it comes to my work specifically, I have hundreds of testimonials. I've done so much work with so many amazing clients that I'm so proud of, that I feel that they speak for themselves. But I don't spend a lot of time defending my personal practice, because I feel so honored to have had the impact that I've had. And I feel it even in those one-to-one sessions. And less along the journey do I even feel inclined to talk about like the accolades or the recognitions. It's nice and it's wonderful, but where I feel most recognized is when I feel that heart-to-heart connection and I feel that impact is being created. I feel that sense of being honored by seeing someone who maybe has lived a certain way their entire life. And all of a sudden they go through this quantum leap, this massive change and shift to a different way of existing with that openness and that willingness to trust their intuition and that willingness to trust a higher power and that willingness to be able to make choices for themselves that feel like they support their highest good. That for me is the recognition that I desire at the end of the day. And I know that if we are able to support more energies going through that process, being the catalyst for that process, they can then do the same for that many more energies that they come into contact with.
You need your own show. I know you have your own show on social media and you're very active. You're one of the hardest working people that I know. And I know a lot of hardworking people and Olympians. It's an Olympic year and you're an Olympian in your world with the amount of work and time and care and energy and effort that you put in. So what I'm hearing too, and it's funny because I'm in my snakeskin top and it's very, and it's that Olympic theme with Taylor Swift. Are you ready for it? And so even as you're talking, I'm just hearing, are you ready for it? And sometimes people are in a place where they are just ready for that transformation and they're like, I'm open to anything. And I think with anyone, you have to be ready to step outside of your ego, to step outside of what's comfortable or what's known, to be ready for some really uncomfortable feelings to emerge, to be ready to face parts of yourself that could be really, really challenging to look at. But then I ask and I offer people, who do you want to be and what kind of life do you have and what you're ready to experience or work through, but then those rewards that, I'm really starting to see for myself by putting in the work and staying committed to it and having incredible people like yourself to really support me along the way. It's just been tremendous. So I want to, if you're okay with it, give people just a little bit of a taste of your gifts and connecting to a higher power and consciousness. I think a theme that's coming up for a lot of people is there's so much chaos going on. What should I focus on? Or how can I feel less fear and feel more empowered? Because there's moments where I'll just even a few minutes of looking at what's going on in the world can be, especially to an empath, can be so troubling and so upsetting and so anger inducing. And then even, I live in Los Angeles and even hearing about some things going on, I have moments where I just feel so scared and I'm like, okay, you're allowed to feel this, but then let's look at all the homes that aren't being burglarized. Look at all the plans that did land safely, like reminding myself of the safety and security in the world as well. Mm-hmm. Can you offer us some sort of message in terms of what we should be doing at this time based on everything definitely. I just threw out you? That was a lot.
No, definitely. No, I received it. That's the most athletic thing I do is receive messages. No, absolutely. So immediately when you started connecting to speaking through that stream of consciousness, okay, it connected to something that came up today through meditation. And I'm strongly feeling right now an energy based on a collective that needs to have faith and hope, even during times of transition and change. And the one thing that comes up is that we are always in a state of perpetual change. If we look at nature, because that was a reference from earlier, nature shows us what the process is of change, right? There is birth, there is life, there is death, there is rebirth. We go through the cyclical nature in all things, right? Whether it be the cycles of the moon, whether it be the process of a plant that's growing within your garden, whether it be the process and the journey of our life. Being able to lean into that change if we can, or be open to times in which there is tumultuousness or challenge in a state of acceptance. I'm even feeling right now the collective just needing to be able to have a state of acceptance and meeting themselves where they are and meeting the world where it is. Because despite how chaotic it may seem and all of the challenges that are presenting themselves at this time, this period of destabilization, right? This period of feeling like we are in a state of instability. This is what is required in order to be able to shake the trees, in order to be able to restabilize or recalibrate in a way in which there is balance, in a way in which we have stronger foundations. And even beyond this, what I'm strongly feeling as well for this collective is needing to be able to accept any singular moment and all that it offers. Right? I liken a singular moment as like the layers of the earth. There are multiple layers that can exist in any given point in time. A moment has density. So maybe there are beautiful aspects of that moment, but also maybe that there are very painful aspects of this moment. Right? In the same moment in time, at this exact time, as hard as it is, there is a baby being born into a family And there is, unfortunately, an infant that is passing out of starvation. These things are happening concurrent. And it's heartbreaking to acknowledge this, but it's also an acceptance of the truth of the complexity and the nuance and the density of any given moment. And what we must do is try to accept where we are in this moment in time, and also recognize that we must, yes, be thankful and grateful for all that we have, and be as present as we can on the journey, even if there are moments of pain, even if there are moments of discomfort, being present in that pain and discomfort, just like you are present in that moment of pleasure and prosperity, because where we find ourselves in the midst of that is in the balance. I feel that what we must do is find the balance in any given moment, and not seek out those high highs, and not seek out, or covet or hold on to those low lows. There's an aspect as well of maybe we do have a grip or hold on while we are in a certain place in our life, but if things need to change or if things are moving out of our life, just letting go, accepting and having an opportunity to let go. But what I'm feeling for this collective right now, because I kept hearing the word freedom, there is freedom in acceptance. There is salvation in acceptance. We don't seek to be beyond who we are or beyond what we are. And we know and trust that all things are being governed and are being orchestrated on our behalf. There's a beauty in knowing that our higher power, our spirit guides, is taking care of us, and that all we have to do is surrender. But yes, there will always be challenges, and there will always be difficulties going on in the world, and it's hard to know where to focus or where to apply our efforts. And it can be exhausting, and it can be all consuming. So ground yourself. I'm feeling this energy of ensuring the collective can ground yourself, because we must be in a state of holding ourselves down before we can support others. Ensuring that you are in this place of being on your center, you are anchoring yourself and taking care of yourself first, but also being able to see the context of all that is taking place, and being able to support or open your heart to those causes that do need your support, when you have the ability to do so. So it feels like there's this moment of transition, challenge, change, but it also feels like that transition, challenge, change, transformation is leading us to a beautiful place in which we have more of the symbiotic nature within our relationship with the world, our relationship with each other. And I'm feeling like things are coming into that place of balance and peace. But in order to find that balance and peace, it's almost as if we have to accept being in the state of chaos and change.
Oh, thank you for that. That was so beautiful. And I hope everyone listening is really taking that in. I find that it does help to close your eyes and really take in the depth of the message. So please go back and listen to that again, even on a walk or something, just being able to walk around in nature at the park and listen to your words is really helpful. For me, I feel like whenever I get kind of taken out by whether it's the sadness or chaos or people seeing their beloved country change for the worst in some areas. And, there's a lot of chatter about that and among other things. But for me, it makes me want to double down on my life assignments, because I'm not here to save the whole world. We all have our assignments. If it's, art, you're the artist and you've got your assignment. So it's how can I create art that inspires or offers hope or peace or guidance, for instance. And for me, it's creating the show so that we can have more real, raw conversations and not just be sweeping things under the rug, pretending things don't bother us, but really getting in there and discussing things that matter, that have meaning. And so I hope everybody is taking that in. What about the people? And I've been one of these people who says, as you've even experienced, who are crying or upset or angry or pushing back against us right now and saying, but I'm tired. Enough is enough. What do you say to that?
I feel that can be the most beautiful place to get to. Sometimes when we get to that place of exhaustion, because we are strong-willed by nature, right? Because we are determined by nature, because the human spirit is indomitable, because our natural inclination is to push and push, we can get to that place of fatigue and exhaustion, and it's actually a blessing. Because often in that time of fatigue and exhaustion, what we do is we finally take a step back and say, what do I need to let go of? What can I surrender? What can I release? What can I unburden myself with?
Ooh.
That's a message that most of us can resonate with, because often that fatigue or that exhaustion, it's where are you taking on too much? And how can you surrender to a higher power, a higher purpose, divine order, in supporting there to be a successful outcome, or an outcome that at least is one that finds a new form of balance or peace. And what you described it quite articulately. We all have individual assignments. We all have individual soul contracts. We all have our higher purpose and path. And that higher purpose can actually evolve and change over time. But we need not take on all of those respective purposes. And we also have to trust that there is a higher force, a higher power governing all of the existence around us. And that there is a state of interconnectivity, and that we would never be asked to be responsible for all things and all people. And in fact, if anything, that would be something that could lead to disaster. So in that case, as difficult as it is, just saying what I can do for myself right now to be able to feel better is just manage what is in my control, which is my own energy, right?
Yeah.
Just ground myself, take care of myself, come back into a state of awareness in the fact that, yes, I am one with the universe. So anytime the universe is going through this period of difficulty or change, I'm going to feel that. Like, I'm going to feel that collective energy. And that's also a gift. Like, be thankful and grateful that you have the capacity to feel, and that you're a good soul, and that you are willing to receive that, and that affects you, and that there's sorrow. Those are also blessings, that you have the capacity to love and feel. But it's important to not dwell in those periods of heaviness. And if we are tired, which I feel, yes, the collective is tired. There is collective burnout and exhaustion. And on even the 24-hour news network and all that is taking place every day, there's constant tragedy and doom and gloom, and it even feels reductive to communicate it in that way. But how do we even begin to determine what is deserving of our focus, our energy, or our time? And in those moments when you feel overwhelmed, the only thing you can do is come back into a state of being grounded within yourself, within your own energy.
I think a lot of people are also tired because they're feeling a lack of support from society at large, from their government. But then what's even more painful is perhaps feeling a lack of support, especially emotionally, from immediate family members, from partners, parents, kids, best friends, or so-called best friends, from the bestie at work, these colleagues. And so that's kind of, I think, adding to the stress or feeling tired. And that's certainly been part of my journey, as you know, is feeling that lack of emotional support from people who love us or claim to love us. And part of the messages and that we get, and you just spoke to it, is about letting go and really putting the focus back on ourselves instead of, why can't they love me properly? Why is this jerk being a jerk? Why did I get involved with a company that was happening? Why did I, meet a con man that disrupted my life and caused me harm? Whatever it is, everyone has their thing. Whatever just came to mind, that's your thing. I don't think we need to go on and on. You're like, Kate, we get it. But for those of us who are getting that call, who already have let some people go, and the pain that's associated with that, or need to let some people go, I think people really struggle with that because they don't want to feel mean or bad or wrong or hurt feelings, but at the expense of their own well-being. And so how can we, I guess, step more into our power and let go of some of these things, whether it's shame, whether it's a relationship, it's a feeling. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And it's a practice, as you know, and something that you get better as you do it, just like the gym, your muscles get stronger, but it is a practice. Any guidance you can give those of us who are really still struggling in that area, which I think is everyone. I don't know one woman who is like, nope, all my relationships are perfect. That's like a whole other level of delulu. Like, they need help on a different area. But
or the bar is too low for those relationships. Is it?
Good point.
You know what it is? Like you said, it's an ongoing practice. And I feel that everyone who's connecting with the messages we're sharing right now and the conversation can resonate with their respective version of the purge, right? Which happens as part of your spiritual awakening. Often in your first or second awakening, you'll go through what feels like this mass exodus and shedding of skin. And that shedding of skin is a reflective shedding of identities that can sometimes be prefaced by the releasing of multiple relationships in one's life in a way that almost feels, again, like it isn't consensual. It's like you have all these friends or family members or all these energies leave your life. And in that moment, that initial inclination or instinct to grip onto them is that ego of like, I need something from these relationships. And as they go through the process of awakening, they often recognize, no, there was something within those relationships that wasn't actually benefiting me. And there was that higher power that was actually stepping in to support me. I feel like we do receive that help and aid from the universe in naturally helping us evolve beyond relationships that are not supportive to us. For those who are still holding on to relationships and desiring to create more boundaries, or at minimum, not personalize the relationships or the current state, the best that you can do again is remember that all individual energies are acting based on their own needs and are all self-motivated. And it's rare, if not never, taking place in which those energies are acting or behaving because of something that's being done by you. It's in every case because of some type of limitation or some type of blockage or some type of karmic wound that exists within the person that is taking that action. And their behavior is also their responsibility, just like your behavior is your responsibility. So what I try to do is shift the balance away from it being this dynamic of seeming that there's a protagonist and antagonist, or that there's a victim and an oppressor, shifting into the place of there's equivalency here. We are all on the same plane, and just like it's their responsibility to do better, it's our responsibility to do better for ourselves. And to say that I'm not going to key myself into any relationship that consciously disenfranchises me or oppresses me or prevents me from feeling like I can be in a position of power. And we also have to dive deep into, where am I choosing to keep these relationships in my life because of their specific definition or title? Again, maybe it's a father figure, a mother figure, which of course is very painful and challenging. Maybe it's someone that you've been friends with since high school, and there's an ego identity with, I need to keep my high school friends, or what does that say about me if I don't have this big friend group? Maybe it's a partnership and just feeling like, within society, do I exist without being in the confines of a partnership? And going within to say, where am I subconsciously manifesting these relationships based on a purpose that I don't even resonate with? I don't agree that, if you actually look at things objectively, if you spoke through this independently, you wouldn't agree that you should keep a relationship in your life because of the title or name alone, or that you should keep a relationship in your life because of how it appears to others. But we get trapped in the matrix. We get trapped in the perspectives that are created through the society that raises us. And again, often it's that spiritual awakening that we hit that first brick wall in which we start to say, no, I can create new ideas and I can form new conclusions and I can create a new identity that doesn't require these relationships to sustain something in me that I'm not willing to look at. And it's painful and it's difficult. And a lot of the reasons why the decisions are not made is because sometimes those decisions do require, as you mentioned earlier, as you referenced, that deep introspection, that very painful introspection. And that on my journey, as well as many of my clients' journeys, have been the biggest epiphanies or aha moments have been, where have I worked against my ultimate objectives and goals? Where have I stood in the way of what my incarnation was wanting for me? And then just not only saying where, but being honest about that and saying, okay, now what am I going to do about it? Now what
Yeah,
actions am I going to
exactly.
take? Which is even almost even harder, So it's not so much a process of just, yes, the boundaries being put in place, I feel like are really important. I feel like we're all as a collective learning to put boundaries in place. We're all learning language now. I feel like there's been this democratization of language, psychological language like gaslighting and language around boundaries and just making sure that people are aware of narcissism. It's become more popularized to say, what do you need to do to define and create structure within your relationships? And how can you seek self-empowerment? But I feel like it goes beyond that. It goes into this process of, what do I truly desire? And am I willing to be in that period of discomfort when I actually put forth my desires as intentions and actions in that time of opposition in which people may disagree, in which people may feel differently or actually push back and create resistance? And just being able to stand strong in that position of conviction. That's very challenging.
Thank you for that. There's so many takeaways, but what I'm feeling called to ask, I'd love to maybe get one more collective message and then really tap into us being able to channel our inner Mercy, intuitive, psychic medium, and really start to do some of this work independently. But I do want to stress the importance of how we need to have these conversations, as uncomfortable or challenging as they can be, with ourselves first, with people we feel psychologically safe with. So, not having these conversations with just anybody, but also hiring professionals and hiring people who can really help you dive in deeper in a safe, non-judgmental space. I mean, that's even why I became a certified professional coach in the first place. But I'm finding my superpower with coaching. I can have all the best training in the world, but it really is fine tuning my own instrument and really doing the work on myself so that I can truly hold space, but also tapping into the power of our intuition. Because, I'll have clients that will say certain things and I'm hearing what they're saying and I'm registering it intellectually, but I'm feeling, which feeling is I'm like, okay, they're saying this, but what I'm feeling is they are really struggling and they're not admitting it. So I will delicately ask questions to get them to maybe tap into that, even though it's scary or they may not want to. So I do want to get your guidance on how we can all tap into this intuition on our own. But I would love, it's funny as we talk about relationships, it's such a universal theme and everybody, no matter how material successful they are or where they live in the world, how old or how young, race, religion, gender, the one universal theme is everyone's had their heart broken. Or if you haven't yet, just wait.
There's still time.
Yeah, there's your time's coming. I've been through there so many times, but I don't want to say obsession, but yeah, I think we all have this obsession with wanting to love and feel loved and experience that deep connection with someone. And some people live their whole lives and they may even have been married for 50 years, but still haven't really had that deep connection with self or another. I would love to get some intuitive guidance around how we can all connect more deeply with ourselves and therefore others so we can have stronger romantic partnerships, stronger relationships with our chosen family, our friends, our work colleagues, our children, everybody. I would just love to hear some guidance. I think that's a message everybody needs always.
Definitely. No, absolutely. And I do feel like there's a little bit of a collective shift on this. There is still there's an over focus on romantic relationships and idealizing of them and centering of them. But I do sense that there is a bit of a shift as we start to see more self-focused practices become more widely adopted. But let's see if we can tap in and see if there are any messages that come through.
What comes up.
Spirits, angels, guides, ascended masters, loved ones, teachers, positive ancestors, any specific messages as it relates to connection and a deep state of oneness with self. Okay, so firstly, I am sensing that this collective that I'm channeling right now did have an awareness of a time in which they were connected to self. And the challenges, the trials and tribulations of life have set them off course or made them feel as if they couldn't connect to self in the same way. There are deep karmic wounds here, both past life and present life. And sometimes those wounds can lead to a state of shame or a question around our worthiness. And when we have a state of shame and a question of our worthiness, it is very challenging to want or desire to even allow ourselves to focus in on our healing. We often don't feel worthy of healing. Am I worthy of healing? Am I worthy of discovering myself? Am I worthy of exploring these obstacles? Am I worthy of being able to define a roadmap or blueprint to a better relationship with self and a better relationship with others? And shame, a vibration that is not only one of the lowest vibrations, but a vibration that can be just so destabilizing and immobilizing in terms of our ability to make any inspired action or progress within our life is still all consuming to this collective. There's this feeling of shame from a relationship within their history. Okay. A relationship with a mother or father figure coming through. And again, past life energy impacting this as well. A mother or father figure that could not emotionally support their needs and a feeling as if they were unworthy to be able to have those needs to begin with. And I'm strongly feeling like this collective being able to find peace in knowing that same parental figure or nurturing figure could not provide them that support was more, again, a testament to their own limitations and blockages and their own ancestral wounds and generational curses that they were not strong or powerful enough to be able to overcome. But it was not in any way reflective of their worthiness. And in trying to have a deeper relationship with self, we must first define what we are afraid of. What are we afraid of within ourselves? What are we afraid to view? What are we afraid to acknowledge? What are we afraid to look at in the face and welcome in? The process of a relationship with self begins with that self-love. But prior to that, we must address the ego, the shadows that block us from being in that state of unconditional love for self. The second is a willingness to go through the process of both loving self and accepting self. So full acceptance of who you are and all that you are now and all that you'll be. And then the third is this aspect of celebrating self, not so much just accepting and loving self, but also celebrating all aspects of who you are authentically, and then sharing that with the world without fear of repercussion, persecution, inquisition, or having any concerns over how you are perceived, because who you are is who you are, and it's not up for debate or questioning. So it feels like this is a collective that needs to work through this path of addressing the shame that causes them to feel unworthy of connecting to self at a deep level from a place of love and acceptance. And then through the pathway of acceptance and love, we find celebration. And when we celebrate ourselves, when we are proud of ourselves, when we are confident in how we express ourselves, we will attract all of the romantic energies. Okay. All of the energies will be attracted to us because we are living in this state of this jubilee of self. We are this exposition of who we are. The beauty of that confidence is the highest vibration, that authenticity, the highest vibration. Will call in energies from near and far. And when you call in energies from near and far, it's that same self-love and self-acceptance that will determine what is actually a fit, what is additive to my life, what is supportive to my life, and not just what am I willing to concede or accept because it is offered to me. It's a process and a journey, but I feel that this collective is on the way. I strongly feel this collective is on the way.
I love your messages. Thank you. I have to ask, how do we stop judging ourselves and others?
This is a loaded question. It is a very...
Sorry. I feel like I'm always throwing so much at you. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I love
that. Wide receiver. You
depth.
catch everything with a smile on your face and score the touchdown. Thank you.
Oh, I love the depth. I seek out depth and I flourish in depth. I don't desire, covet, or I'm not attracted to surface level conversation or connection. But I feel that when we are judging others, it's because we are judging ourselves. When we have the inclination towards self-judgment or blaming of others, it's because there's something here that maybe we're not willing to acknowledge in ourselves. And what we can do first to stop judging others, we'll start there, is to acknowledge the fact that our judgment of others comes from our own insecurities and our own unwilling to accept culpability or responsibility in our own life, and our desire to be able to create a hierarchy because we feel in some way that there is this fixed amount of resources or abundance, which also reflects a scarcity mindset. So we think, okay, we must judge others or put others down in order to remain superior, in order to remain in power, or to be able to have, stability or security in what we currently own. When we recognize that we are all in a state of oneness, that there is no separation, we won't have an inclination towards that judgment. But it's that desire to maintain a sense of superiority and security. They can often come from dogmatic views that are religiously based. It can also come from an unwillingness, again, to be able to truly be doing that ruthless self-audit. And when we do that ruthless self-audit and we understand that we are all on our own journeys and paths, we will never have the inclination to judge. We will also not waste our energy judging. Oof. Judging is also a significant utilization of our resources. So when I think of how do I want to spend my day, thinking about complaining about things that come up along the day that are minute comparatively to what others are experiencing. When I think about the idea of spending time judging or engaging in anything that feels a little bit unhealthy, my next instinct is there not a more beautiful way to experience that moment? Is there a way where I can make better use of that singular moment in time and be more present? And when it comes to self-judgment comes from, again, that place of shame, right? And in cases of us judging ourselves in the context of other people, that self-deprecating nature often it's like get yourself before they get you. It's like there's a concern over how people will perceive you and a want to be able to almost prevent what feels like a rejection by rejecting yourself first, which is a very painful way of exposing a part of yourself that you haven't worked on yet. And self-judgment is one that is very complex because often self-judgment is a learned behavior. It's something that we grow up with. In many cases, there's ancestral language that plays into this, and language is incredibly important. I can tell you that's the first way that I'll connect to a client and know where their challenges are is the way they talk about themselves.
Yeah.
immediately. And even in the way they carry themselves, the body language, the energy, their aura, everything is respective of, are they still living in that narrative and story of shame and feeling like they don't belong, a sense of displacement, a sense of unworthiness or unlovability? Or is there more of a groundedness in their energy? Yes, they're still working through something that feels temporary, but they still feel like they can hold themselves down. That's that's the first way. When I sense self-judgment, I know that there's something much deeper at play. And sometimes it's very overt and sometimes it's covert. But I feel that everybody does it. And it took a lot of spiritual work, to preface, to be clear, to get to where I am today. So I don't want to make it seem as if everything's sunshine and rainbows and toxic positivity, because you can go in the opposite end of the spectrum and go to a place in which you're inaccessible because of your unwillingness to accept the truth of discomforts that we all face, because we're perfectly imperfect. But I feel that self-judgment is often a red flag that we have to be aware of in terms of pointing us towards an X on the map within our healing journey. Where do we need to focus? And where do we learn and practice as well along the way that we are now knowingly carrying forward with us?
Well, I think too, what's just coming through so loud and clear is I think a lot of us, self included, as you know, there's this fear of being judged by others, especially having very deep private conversations now broadcast publicly in the name of serving others and helping other people connect more deeply with themselves and think about these things. And more importantly, feel, like finally getting people to feel. But then sometimes you get people to feel and they're really mad that you got them to feel, or it's like, now they feel this, like, yeah, I got to do something about it. Screw you. Or,
Yeah, I've
I
had
was
it.
fine being numbed out and like
Yeah.
distracted and, keeping all my secrets in. I don't care how sick they made me. Like that's more comfortable than, telling the truth to myself and others. And so what can we do to feel, and you're someone who puts yourself out there very publicly on social media platforms. And you're right. There's people who love you. And then there's people who want to throw apples, not at you, but at everybody, up on stage.
Sure,
Those of
me
us
too,
who
which is
are
fine.
right. Those of us who are willing to put ourselves out there, and that fear of how we're going to be perceived by others. That's been something candidly I've been really working through, and it gets better with age or just not caring. Even something came up today and someone sent me a text and it was just something I didn't want to even think about. But instead of, it's almost that notion of, what do you think about so and so? And it's kind of like, I don't, or I choose to spend my energy thinking about this incredible project I'm working
Yeah.
on rather than trying to psychoanalyze, fix, control, not be annoyed by somebody else's inability to heal themselves or to put in the work or to choose a toxic behavior and therefore have toxic, unhealthy relationship patterns. I just now remove myself. But because I do care, it's hard not to get caught up in the caca of that. But how do we really start to release? Again, it is a practice. I'm even like, woof, like shedding for those of people who can't see me, just like, oh, like kind of that dry bathing and getting that icky energy off of, you can even feel it. I know because you like, so for me, I never think these things, but I'm like, whoa, I can feel that person judging me. I can feel that person is jealous. I can feel that person saying, who does she think she is? I can feel that person judging the type of conversation that we're having. What do you say to that?
You know what? That's something that we all face to some degree. And yes, when you're in a public arena, you're going to receive more of that scrutiny and more of that judgment. And I went into this sort of relaunch of my social persona, my brand persona, my business, knowing that I was a figure that was somewhat polarizing in the sense where I do have a very strong energy. I do have a very commanding energy. I'm a mix of masculine and feminine energy. I'm not overtly soft or feminine or delicate, maybe what people would expect. I'm in like the love and light aspect of the spiritual community. There's an intensity about me that can sometimes rub people the wrong way. And the wrong person who's maybe in a place in which they're, I don't want to say insecure, but maybe still working through finding their own power, they can sense that and there's opposition to that, right? So I had to go into it knowing that I wasn't necessarily going to resonate with everybody. And the thing is, truthfully, we wouldn't want to resonate with everybody. Because if you resonate with everybody, you're diluting what you offer. So it's really about expressing yourself authentically and just accepting and knowing that not all people will willingly receive what you have to offer and being really comfortable with that. And also in the same vein, people who are seeking to judge or who are looking to scrutinize, that always comes from a place of their own woundedness, right? Their own unwillingness, like you said, to heal. So knowing that if we're personalizing that, there's still something within us that we need to work on. And not to say that you'll never react. Of course, ideally, we're all in a monastery and we're able to just be constantly in a state of reflection over reaction, right? We're in the state of stoicism and you cannot ruffle our feathers. That's the ideal state, which is highly unrealistic because we live in a very triggering world and society and counterculture, and we have microcosm, and there's so much that exists that can cause us to have strong emotional reactions. So it's important as well when we do have a reaction to be more observational of it as opposed to being judgmental of it, but working to transmute it, right? So similar to the principle of Tai Chi, like I'm receiving the energy, I'm finding a way as to how to not have it affect me per se to the best of my ability. I'm learning from it. I'm like, what lesson can I learn from this? And then I'm sending it back. I'm sending that energy back out and trying not to take that with us. Trying not to have that reinforce a narrative or story that maybe we have within an old version or old identity of ourselves. That's where the magic happens is, okay, what is this bringing up in me? And how can I ensure that I don't internalize this or confirm some type of old bias or belief system? And then we feel much more powerful or we feel magical. That's the process of alchemy versus feeling like this external person scrutinized or judged me. And now I'm going to have this reaction. And I won't specify names here because I don't want to call this person out because I just don't. I have no interest in that. But I had an instance, as you know, where someone was very publicly called out within the public forum. And there were times in which maybe instantaneously the first instinct was to react. But in my heart of hearts and like intuitively even connecting to their energy, I knew that the intentions were good. So even though the ego gets triggered momentarily, you have to sense, okay, the reasoning behind this, what is their actual reason? Either their intentions are good or maybe they're not in another instance, but know that it's not anything that is specifically to do with you and know that we can control as to whether we react to something in that instance. And I chose not to react and be reflective and actually connect with them one-on-one. And we've actually developed a relationship. And
wow.
yeah. And now my community, and it's so funny because they publicly shared after like, wow, your community is so nice. And they flooded my comment section with so much love because I said to them, we do not share hate. I said, I love all of you. We share love here. We want to perpetuate the vibrational frequency of love. So I don't want anybody going there disparaging this individual. I said, I just want to expand and provide that love-based frequency. And his response was, never felt so overwhelmed by so many nice people and everybody was so loving. And again, that's the difference. Like we can choose to be reactive and feed into the negativity, or we can choose to offset it from a place of love. Those would say, oh, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to stand up as you should never feel the need to defend yourself in those situations unless you feel like you're ungrounded or unrooted in what you have to offer. And of course, there is that natural instinct, right? That need to fight or defend, but it's such a poor use of our energy at the end of the day.
Oh, no, I love my brain and my heart, my body. I'm so stimulated in such a great way, which is why I love talking to you. And you and I will talk for 2 hours. And we're like, we don't have enough time. We could just talk for 10 hours. And I just appreciate your depth and your wisdom and your kindness. You always deliver any message with so much genuine kindness. It really is a superpower. And I'm grateful for you for that. I know everyone listening is feeling inspired or feeling triggered or feeling something, and they're feeling. So we've done our job. Woo! How can we step more into our power, which to me means intuition, love, non-judgment, authenticity, vulnerability? Because I know people have resistance and some fear there. How can we step into that more and own and embrace that, not just for ourselves, but for the whole world right now who could really use our power and our authenticity?
So the first thing I would say is the first step to stepping into your power is recognizing you have it. So many people are unaware that they even have power. And we create this dynamic of protagonist, antagonist, or victim and oppressor. And we feel, okay, we start to perpetuate these myths, these self-fulfilling prophecies of things never work for me, or I'm never lucky, or I'm never successful, or I never get the job, and the way that I first work with clients in shifting that paradigm is recognizing you've always had power. You just didn't know how to wield it. And sometimes those blockages to power are as simply as, I don't want to say simple, but it's a process of reprogramming and reframing the way that they see themselves, shifting that identity. I do a lot of work with creating new self concepts and shifting, doing quantum leaps in terms of a state of consciousness around self in order to be able to feel, yes, I have power. That power is available to me. The next step in wielding that power is recognizing where your power is most effective. First and foremost, you have to preserve the power that you have, that energetic quotient that you have. So being mindful as to any draining of your power or poor uses of that power. So maybe there are relationships that are imbalanced, or maybe there's work circumstances in which you do feel, again, like you aren't being supported. Trying to shift the narrative there in terms of, okay, what are we doing to better ourselves in those areas despite the circumstances? Because sometimes circumstances can't change instantaneously, right? We do have to accept where we are within the world, but in saying, okay, well, if I don't feel supported at work, what am I doing to have that not be my destination permanently, right? If I feel ultimately I'm going to end up leaving, how can I better myself in this time? How can I create boundaries so I can then divest or reallocate that energy into higher learning or accreditation? So then ultimately, when I do choose to leave, I have a stronger position in the market and I have more receptivity in terms of what I have to offer. In relationships, yes, like just redirecting your energy out of relationships or just distributing the energy within relationships so you feel like you're not giving away your power. And then beyond that, recognizing the gifts that you do have authentically, that's what make you most powerful. So many of us are in fear of our gifts, of our authentic gifts, because we do grow up with a lot of shame around just being within our truth and being authentic as to who we are. And it seems like a simple change. This is going to seem very surface level, but I feel even in the shift to me and starting to wear my hair and my natural hair, and again, this is going to seem very superficial, but hair is a natural extension of vibrational frequency. And I felt once I started to wear my hair naturally and actually allow myself to just be in my authenticity, I felt a shift in my vibration. I wasn't hiding from something anymore. Right. And there are other ways that you can express yourself again authentically. Maybe you're a very creative person and you were as a child, but you've suppressed that part of yourself because you don't feel comfortable or confident to express that. But then you start to spend more time, playing guitar or painting or doing some type of creative activity that helps connect to a part of who you truly are. So another aspect of our power is just leaning into who we truly are and not allowing ourselves to feel anything else but a level of confidence in terms of expressing that into the world. The other thing that I think is really important is not putting so much pressure on ourselves. Yeah. That's incredibly important because often people want to be in the state of perfection out the gate. Okay, if they're on social media, they want to go viral instantly. If they're starting to play the guitar, because we just used the reference, they want to be an aficionado and a prodigy when they first pick it up. Otherwise, they won't even begin to practice. They want to paint. They want to be Michelangelo. They can't just have fun with a canvas. Express yourself. Enjoy yourself. Allow yourself to grow within the journey and the process, because the power does not come from the result or the success. The power comes from you feeling confident enough to make the decision to try and to put yourself in that place in which you're seen trying, not because of how people receive it, but just because of how you portray it, just because of your willingness to express yourself and not necessarily be seen. So it's important to just take away those blockages that may come from a desire to be able to have this level of proficiency or high level of competency, because that will block people from even beginning in many cases. And it really is a way to suppress some of the beauty of the experiences that we can have. And often what it does is it leads us towards something else. So for me, some of the creative pursuits I've taken on have led me to other endeavors. For me, the spiritual aspect of who I was led me into this world. And as you know, for many years before this, I was in a completely different industry. But trusting that if I made the choice to follow my heart and to have things be figured out along the way was the best decision that I ever made. And that's an aspect of like a declaration of victory. Really, it's just that choice. And being able to allow spirit and the universe to support the rest. There's power as well in like surrendering to that higher power. So a lot of aspects were sort of expressed there. And I feel like we covered a lot, but those would be the best advice that I can provide in terms of how to step into one's power.
It was amazing. Lots of mics being dropped. And I think I just offer those of you listening to just take that first step. And it's kind of like, you already know, we know, we hear the calling, we hear the voice. And sometimes it does take a day, a month, a year, years to act on that voice. But I recommend doing it on your own terms rather than waiting to be in a state of disease before you care for your health, rather than letting everything just fall apart where you then it's like, oh gosh, now I have to make this move. To just even take baby steps on the side and look for that inspired action and really to seek out the guidance and counsel from coaches, from trusted friends and family members. But most importantly, really having that quiet time with yourself to do it for yourself, to do it for that 7-year-old child in you who maybe didn't get properly loved or parented, or maybe who did, but for whatever reason didn't feel emboldened enough to go after the dream or to realize the choices that we had. And we thought we just had to follow some script. So I think it's never too late, and just do it now, whatever that thing is, and that the world needs your gifts, and everyone is gifted. Everyone has that gift of intuition. Everyone has that ability to connect to a higher consciousness and to just go for it. And we're certainly both here for you. So you know how to reach me, and I'll put all of Mercy's information in the show notes. I highly recommend connecting with her and doing a reading and just being open to being blown away by the direct, beautiful, powerful guidance. I really want to leave you with the final thought today. Any final message for us? And thank you so much for just sharing your gifts and your time with us today. It's just been so fun and so meaningful. And I just feel so filled up. So thank you.
I feel the one thing that's coming up is just the importance of being open. That's one of the gifts that you offer that's so beautiful. And in essence is your willingness to be open to not only external guidance, but a willingness to sort of see how things transpire, and an openness to the natural evolution and the process of our journey. And right now, yes, there may be an inclination, because of all that's going on in the world, to grit our teeth and to clench our fists and to hold on really tightly to where we are, because we're fearing losing what we have, right? There's a state of this existential crisis, and this sense of like, we need to control, or at least, stay secure within our current position. But that unwillingness to be open can actually prevent us from being guided to a place in which we have much more peace in our life. So I would say, if you are struggling, or if you're going through a difficult period of time, be open and trust that things can change and shift. We're always changing and shifting and evolving. That is the beauty of the journey. And know as well that if you let go a little bit and if you surrender, it'll make that journey and that experience so much more beautiful and will be so much more comfortable to navigate. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mercy. You are such a gift to me and to the world. We'll have to have you back on again. And I really want to move towards doing some live shows. And it would be so fun to have people be able to ask you live questions, because I'd love to see you do your thing and just offer that support and guidance to people. I know that's why you're so popular online. And just before I even knew you, the messages that you offered publicly to the collective were just, they really hit home personally. And so I'm so grateful that I discovered you. And anytime I get annoyed with social media, I think of the truly gifted and spectacular people like yourself that I've met on social media, and see it is all that perspective shift and changing things around and choosing that thought process and going down that path rather than all the other stuff that people say about social media. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I know you love this episode. You can find out more in the show notes, and please stick with us for the rest of the season. We have so many great episodes coming up. Mercy, everyone, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.